Here's what's headed your way tonight on the news at 9. A fire breaks out in downtown Knoll. We'll have the latest on the fire and on the firefighter who was one of 2 people injured in the blaze.
How will those stimulus checks impact your tax return? I'm Kate Kelly with the answer coming up.
And have you made your New Year's resolution yet? Well, if not, we've got something you might want to consider: volunteering. Nick Kelly has your forecast. This is KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Chris Warner. Authorities in Knoll, Missouri are investigating a fire at the Masjid Tawhid Mosque and the African grocery store. Crews were called out to the fire around 7 this morning. There were 3 people inside when the fire started. 1 person was injured and taken by helicopter to the hospital. 1 firefighter was also hurt, but authorities didn't initially release any information about his injury. The city's fire chief says the fire isn't suspicious. And that fire sent 1 firefighter to the hospital with serious injuries, as we've learned, but his family says his life was saved because of his helmet. KOAM's Caitlin Shive has the story.
The Barrett family has firefighting in their blood. So when the fire at the Knoll African grocery store and mosque broke out Monday morning, all hands were on deck.
The boys are always, hustling out for fires or car wrecks or whatever. And so didn't think too awfully much about it, just listened to the radio. And then I caught some Facebook Live from in town and realized how big it was.
Mandy Barrett is the president of the Knoll Fire Department Auxiliary, while her husband Brandon is the fire chief. Her 22-year-old Blake is a lieutenant and her 12-year-old Briar is a cadet.
It turned into listening to the radio and hearing Blake make entry into the fire, and Brandon, giving directions and whatnot. But then Brandon called me. I don't even know what time it was.
A call no mother wants to hear, as Chief Barrett let her know that Blake had been injured.
That was my first. I've just got to get there. I've got to see it with my own eyes that, Blake is talking and fine. And, he did not enjoy being on that stretcher, I'll tell you.
What had happened was one of the beams across the window or the door over here on the main building had fallen. It struck him right in the top of his helmet, mashed his helmet. Pretty much it saved his life.
Blake has a thoracic compression fracture in his 5th, 7th, and 8th vertebrae and will wear a brace for the next 6 to 8 weeks, an injury that could have been worse without the protection of his helmet.
Even car wrecks or, any type of medical response, you're going to see them in their gear. And I'm thankful, it could have ended very, very badly had he not been protected the way he was.
In Knoll, Caitlin Shive, KOAM News.
The Barretts are hoping for a quick recovery as Blake is scheduled to start the police academy on January 17th. The Jasper County Health Department has reported its 100th COVID-19 death. The health department says it's recorded 2 new COVID-19 deaths. The patients were both men, one in his 70s, the other in his 80s. The Crawford County Health Department is reporting 3 more COVID-19 deaths. At last report, the county had 26 deaths. That number has risen to 29. The health department did not release any information about the patients who died. With a second round of stimulus checks in the works, many taxpayers are wondering how all this COVID relief funding will impact their refund this year. Well, KOAM's Kate Kelly spoke with a CPA in Joplin to find some answers to your tax questions.
Taxes can be a headache, but this year it's even more complicated with people coming across conflicting information about stimulus checks.
I've seen articles that have said, yes, you're going to have to pay this back. I've seen articles that say, no, you don't. I've seen articles that say, this is it's a early advance on your 2020 tax return money that you would get back, but we don't usually get money back. So does that mean I'm going to have to pay it back? That's really my biggest concern.
It's a concern for a lot of people, but it doesn't need to be. The stimulus checks are not taxable, don't have to be paid back, and shouldn't impact your refund, whether you needed the money or not.
If someone got a payment and they weren't supposed to, they don't have to give that back and they're not going to take away from them. But if somebody didn't get a payment, let's say somebody had a baby this last year, if they didn't get a payment and they were supposed to get one, because everything's reconciled based on your 2020 status. So if you were supposed to get money, then that will be added onto your refund.
For small businesses, the Payroll Protection Program and loans fall under the same category, tax-free deductible expenses.
It's ended up not being based on need. So just like with the stimulus checks, they get to keep that money. You know, it becomes part of their cash flow and they can spend it for however they want to. Because it's not going to be any kind of requirement they pay it back.
The first round of stimulus checks really helped out Sarah's family. Her husband was able to find a new job, and they're catching up on their bills.
While the boat still has a hole in it, the bucket that we're bailing water with is at least bigger than the hole now. So there is light. I can't afford any more extra thousands of dollar payments, especially to a federal government that isn't as fiscally responsible as my 2-year-old.
In Joplin, Kate Kelly, KOAM News.
One big thing to keep in mind is that unemployment benefits are taxable income. So that means if you received unemployment benefits without withholdings, you could end up with a much smaller return or actually have to pay in this year. We've got more tax tips in this article on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Nick Kelly joining us, and it is chilly outside, but it's below 60, so that's cold for me. Are we going to see anything get better, or is it going to stay cold?
Let's just say a little bit of everything is on the way, Chris, but you were definitely right about today. After a couple of mild days on Saturday and Sunday, we definitely turned colder today with highs near 39 after we started this morning around 26. I want to bring your attention to a winter weather advisory, though, in our southeast Kansas counties, so Greenwood, Woodson, Coffee, and Anderson. That's until 11 o'clock Tuesday morning, and that's all because we're not seeing anything underneath the cloud cover yet, but our next storm system on the way is already getting steam with plenty of snow falling across central and western parts of Kansas. As we go through the overnight, you can see how we dip back close to freezing, and then by 3 to 6 a.m., that time frame, we'll have a chance for some rain and maybe some freezing rain to start the morning out. Then temperatures warm enough for the rest of the day with highs around 51. But this is one trick up this storm system sleeves, Chris. We'll break down what else this wants to do coming up in a bit.
All right, Nick, thank you. In a special meeting, the Joplin City Council tonight voted to approve 2 ordinances on an emergency basis for a proposed development off of 32nd Street. The project is called 32nd Street Place, and it was asking for the TIF to help fund improvements to the area deemed necessary for the construction of their project. 32nd Street Place is a multi-phase project that, when complete, would include a Menards store, a movie theater, and 300 units of multifamily housing. The council tonight also passed a number of other ordinances related to the TIF request. Those will move to second and third readings. As we gear up for 2021, a fulfilling way to kick off a new year is through volunteer work in the community. Some are one-and-done opportunities, and others, like those with Jasper County Court-appointed special advocates or CASA, require a larger investment of time. Chelsea Scott, the volunteer coordinator with Jasco CASA, stopped by the KOAM Morning News to talk about those opportunities. She says whichever path you choose, it's going to be rewarding and will have a big impact on the kids that they serve.
I feel really confident that the kids are being heard and that their wishes are being communicated because of our volunteers, which is a really big deal.
You can learn more about volunteer opportunities on our website. Just go to KOAMnewsnow.com and click on the Morning Show page. Well, 5 people died on Missouri roads during the holiday weekend, with wrong-way Christmas Day accidents blamed in 3 of the deaths. The counting period began Thursday night and ended yesterday. 2 people died Friday in a wrong-way crash on Interstate 470 in Jackson County. Another wrong-way wreck killed a man in St. Charles County on Friday. A 14-year-old girl passenger died in a wreck Thursday, and a 56-year-old woman died yesterday when her car left the roadway in Cole County. The parents of a 4-year-old Missouri girl allegedly killed by neighbors to remove a demon now face charges. Mary Mast and James Mast, both of Lincoln, Missouri, are charged with felony child endangerment resulting in death. They're in jail without bond. The couple's other children, a 2-year-old son and an infant, were placed in protective custody. The 4-year-old girl was found dead at the family home on December 20th. Benton County, Missouri Sheriff Eric Knox says the girl had been severely beaten and dunked in an icy pond as part of what appeared to be a religious-type episode. 2 neighbors are charged with second-degree murder. And we take this time now to honor one of our many four-state heroes. Private First Class Orrin Barker served in the Army from 1951 to 1953, his hometown, Thayer, Kansas. And we are proud to salute Orrin Barker, tonight's four-state hero. And of course, to learn more about other heroes, or if you've got one that you'd like to submit of your own, all you need to do is head over to our website at KOAMNewsNow.com. Well, Nick Kelly is up with a look at our forecast for this last week, thank goodness, of 2020. And a little later, we'll break down Christmas travel numbers. This is the KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14.
Quite a bit to get to on this Monday night, so we're going to dive right in as we speak. Mostly cloudy skies, what we saw quite a bit of from indigo sky just outside of Seneca, Missouri throughout the course of the day, and that has had an impact on temperatures after we spent Saturday and yesterday with highs in the lower to middle 60s. Quite a bit colder today. 28, 29 this morning at Joplin Regional, and only making it into the upper 30s. Some of you snuck back near 40, but definitely much colder compared to the past few days. And we are still cold out there. 36 in Joplin, feels like 32, with a light east breeze for now at 5 miles per hour. Already down to 31 at Stockton Lake. In the meantime, 36 in Independence, Nowata, Welch, maybe 38 in Anderson. In general, it's just cold no matter where you are, setting the stage for a winter weather advisory, clipping Woodson, Greenwood, why am I blanking here? Coffee and Henderson counties, there we go, in southeast Kansas until 11 o'clock Tuesday morning, and that's because of our next storm system on the way. The first glimpse of the radar may show what looks like a little bit of slight snow falling across parts of southeast Kansas, but still, I don't think any of that's reaching the ground. We definitely have snow reaching the ground, though, across central and western parts of Kansas. That is where our next storm system is gaining steam. It's working away from the four corners in the southwestern U.S. at the surface, but upstairs, this is the main upper low. It's going to really drive the system forward and be an issue for us as we head through the next several days. So let's just break everything down. We will keep mostly cloudy. We will stay cold as we head toward the overnight. Let's keep an eye on temperatures, though. Some of you might be just above the freezing mark. Other spots might be just below it. And that's going to depend, or rather determine, how we're going to start Tuesday morning out. Between 3 and 6 a.m., more moisture rolls in. So for many of you, this could start as rain chances for your Tuesday morning drive, while others could see a little bit of freezing rain trying to mix in before everybody goes back up at the freezing mark, certainly by late morning. If we saw any of this potential freezing rain try to accumulate, it's not looking like a big deal. Maybe a glaze to 1/10 of an inch at worst, but it's still something that we'll keep an eye on as we head throughout the course of our Tuesday morning. As far as the rest of the day goes, we'll get a break in the action around lunchtime. Then we'll watch for more showers trying to develop as we head toward the afternoon. So 33, a cold start for sure, 45 by noon, and then we'll have afternoon highs around 51. So that's just one trick up the storm system sleeve. First with the rain and some freezing rain chances for Tuesday morning, a break by lunchtime. Then as this first cold front rolls on in, we'll watch for more rain chances late Tuesday going into Wednesday. But then behind the cold front, temperatures sharply drop with maybe some very light accumulating snow trying to mix in as we head toward Wednesday afternoon and evening. We're not done with this yet. Note the backside of the storm system one to sneak in from Texas, of all places. This could bring in some rain and freezing rain chances for Thursday afternoon and evening, and all of this could end as a mix of rain, snow, and some wintry mix precipitation before we start to dry things out on Saturday. As far as temperatures go, 51 tomorrow and Wednesday, with dropping temperatures quickly on Wednesday, 36 New Year's Eve, 41 New Year's Day. Then we're looking a lot better for the rest of the weekend ahead of us, Chris.
Well, it's a week late, but now it's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas.
Yeah, you could definitely say that based on how the forecast is looking.
All right, Nick, thank you so much. Well, coming up, a look at consumer news, including why holiday returns could spell trouble for retailers. This is the KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. Bitcoin is headed for its longest monthly winning streak in more than a year. The largest cryptocurrency touching a record above $28,365 over the weekend, according to a Bloomberg report. Bitcoin is on track for registering its longest monthly gain since mid-2019. The record high comes just moments after President Trump signed the $900 billion stimulus package that averted a government shutdown. Christmas air travel takes a nosedive. According to the TSA, roughly 77% fewer people traveled on Christmas Day when compared to last year. 616,000 people went through airport security in the U.S. on Friday. This is in stark contrast to the pandemic's air travel record just 2 days prior on Wednesday. Air travel was expected to take a turn and skyrocket on Sunday as folks head back home for the holidays. Health officials are concerned the spike in travel will lead to a corresponding uptick in COVID cases similar to the one after Thanksgiving. The saying, "many happy returns," may not really be one of the retailers what they're feeling this post-Christmas period. The shoppers bring back gift items that'll cost a large chunk of change. Online shopping seen a huge jump this year during the coronavirus pandemic, but returns on gift purchases could have retailers seeing less greenbacks. Narvar Incorporated, an online return company, saying shoppers will return twice as many items this year as last year. This could cost retailers over $1 billion. Buyers may also see delays of refunds for 2 weeks after online buys are sent back. More retailers are allowing online purchases to be brought back to stores to save shipping and do refunds faster. One online expert says people return 25% online bought items compared to only 8% of store-bought items. Well, just ahead, the latest as the investigation continues into the Nashville bombing. The motive for the Christmas Day explosion, which rocked Nashville, Tennessee, may never be known. The director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation made the announcement as they continue their probe into the blast. Fox News correspondent Charles Watson has the latest from Nashville.
New video shows the initial impact of an RV explosion on Christmas in Nashville. Investigators say 63-year-old Anthony Warner blew up his RV. Police say the vehicle was playing an announcement that a bomb would go off. 6 Nashville police officers are being called heroes for going door to door telling people to get out of harm's way.
I literally hear God tell me to turn around. As I turn around, for me it felt like I only took 3 steps. And then the music stopped, and as I'm walking back toward topping now, I just see orange, and then I hear a loud boom.
Investigators were able to name Warner as a suspect by using a vehicle identification number found at the blast location. That led authorities to a home in Antioch, a suburb of Nashville. From there, they were able to collect and match DNA with human remains at the explosion site.
Forensic scientists with TBI confirmed a match of the DNA at both locations belonging to the person of interest in this case.
The blast damaged more than 40 buildings, including an AT&T building. Federal agents are working to see if that building was targeted. As their probe continues, lawmakers are now focusing on rebuilding.
We're going to do everything with FEMA to make sure that the funding is there so we can rebuild this part of Nashville and get it back on track.
As for the investigation, the FBI says it believes Warner acted alone. They also say they're speaking with his acquaintances to try to figure out a motive. In Nashville, Tennessee, Charles Watson, Fox News.
Investigators in Tennessee said Warner's father worked for AT&T, and they're looking at whether or not this played a role in the bombing. Well, still ahead, another potential COVID vaccine beginning trials. This is KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. Another potential COVID-19 vaccine begins a large-scale trial in the U.S. The Phase 3 study comes as we see a surge of hospitalizations nationwide. Fox News correspondent Brian Yennis has more.
More than 9.5 million coronavirus vaccines have been distributed nationwide. Today, Novavax became the 5th company to launch a Phase 3 COVID vaccine trial in the U.S. Operation Warp Speed providing more than $1.6 billion in funding for that clinical study. This comes as states like New Jersey and Massachusetts begin vaccinating long-term care residents.
Our goal has consistently been to not just meet the current challenges, but to ensure both high-quality care and the safety of residents and staff going forward.
The vaccines are rolling out in the middle of a surge of COVID-19 infections, coming on the heels of colder weather and holiday travel. The country is averaging more than 200,000 new cases each day. Just last week, nearly 40% of ICU patients were battling COVID-19. That's up from 35% at the end of November.
Limit your gatherings to small groups of people within the same household. Consider the risk of including elderly loved ones or those more susceptible to the virus.
And there are growing concerns about a new variant of the virus in the UK. Scientists across the country are testing samples to determine if the more contagious strain is in the U.S.
There's no evidence whatsoever that this causes more serious illness, that it increases death. No evidence whatsoever. Also, even if it's in the United States, it doesn't mean that it's widespread in the United States.
People flying in from the UK must receive a negative COVID test within 72 hours of departure. In New York, Brian Yennis, Fox News.
More news still coming your way.
The man charged with opening fire at an Illinois bowling alley makes his initial court appearance. I'm Garrett Tenney in Chicago with the details coming up.
Army Sergeant Duke Webb virtually appeared before a judge on Monday after he was charged with 3 counts of murder and 3 counts of first-degree attempted murder for allegedly opening fire in a Rockford, Illinois bowling alley. The shooting, just one of a record-high number of killings in the small town this year, a disturbing trend seen in small communities and big cities across the country in 2020. Fox News correspondent Garrett Tenney is in Chicago with this story.
Active duty Army Sergeant 37-year-old Duke Webb making his first court appearance on Monday. He's facing multiple counts of murder and attempted murder after allegedly opening fire at a bowling alley in Rockford, Illinois on Saturday, killing 3 men and wounding 3 others, including 2 teenagers.
He is in the U.S. Army, and we take that very seriously. There are some indications of PTSD and brain injury, but he'll be evaluated by a doctor for that.
The bowling alley shooting just one of a record high number of killings in Rockford in 2020. 30 so far this year, including Saturday's deadly incident, an alarming trend seen in other small communities and big cities across the country this year, with homicides and shootings surging.
As we come to the end of this most difficult year, and we look ahead at this new year upon us, we know that this type of violence needs to stop. This type of violence in the city of Rockford needs to stop. This type of violence throughout our country.
Cities like New York, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, all seeing a jump in murders. After 3 years of homicide numbers declining in Chicago, the city's numbers have skyrocketed. In Detroit, non-fatal shootings are up more than 50%. Smaller cities like Corpus Christi, Texas, and Milwaukee are also suffering a spike in cases. So what's behind the jump in deaths and shootings? Authorities and experts point to things like social and economic turmoil due to the pandemic, a shift in the public's view of policing following the death of George Floyd, and historic unemployment. Webb served in the Army for 12 years and was on leave when the shooting occurred. In Chicago, I'm Garrett Tenney, Fox News.
Actress Lori Loughlin is out of jail after nearly 2 months for her role in the college admissions scandal. Full House star was released from a federal prison in Northern California today, 2 days before her release date. 56-year-old Loughlin and her fashion designer husband, Massimo Giannilli, were both convicted of paying $500,000 in bribes to get their 2 daughters into the University of Southern California as rowing recruits. They both pleaded guilty to a conspiracy charge in May. Loughlin now faces 2 years of supervised release and is required to perform 250 hours of community service. Her husband, who was sentenced to 5 months in prison, isn't due to be released until sometime in April. Dozens of firefighters responding to reports of a wall collapse Monday afternoon. It happened in the Sunset Park neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York. At least one person was seen being carried out on a stretcher by firefighters. There's no word on that person's condition or the extent of their injuries at this time. The incident is under investigation. Another violent attack in Afghanistan. 6 people were hurt during an explosion in Kabul on Monday. The attack targeted employees of the National Statistics Authority who were riding on a minibus at the time of the incident. Police said the bomb was placed on a bicycle. No one is claiming responsibility for the attack. Well, Nick's back with another check of our forecast. Later on, we'll take a look at the year in scandals.
While it was nice to keep quiet for today, we were definitely colder with not only a colder air mass in place, But we definitely had mostly cloudy skies across Indigo Sky and all across the area outside of Seneca, Missouri. We had cloud cover still in place at 9:38 on this Monday night, with Joplin Regional checking in at 36. Feels like 32 with a light east breeze at 5 miles per hour. Around the rest of the region, we're at 32 right at the freezing mark at Stockton Lake and Greenfield, while we're at 35 in Carthage, 36 in Grove and Miami. So everyone pretty much hanging out in the mid-30s, but we're going to be flirting with the freezing mark as our next round of rain wants to work in overnight. That's where our winter weather advisory comes into play. It's for Greenwood, Woodson, Coffee, and Anderson counties on the Kansas side until 11 o'clock Tuesday morning. First glimpse of the Skywise Storm Tracker doesn't show a lot going on, even though we do have some snow echoes popping up on the radar north of 54. It's not really reaching the ground, at least not yet. We've still got a little ways to go before the atmosphere is fully saturated and any moisture headed our way makes its way down to the ground. But it is definitely snowing across north central and northwestern parts of Kansas as our next storm system at the surface works away from the Four Corners, not to mention the upper low working out of Nevada. That's going to push the storm system our way and keep it around the area for the next several days. Let's focus on the forecast for the rest of tonight and tomorrow first and foremost, because this is going to be the first wave of the storm system rolling in. Let's keep an eye on temperatures overnight. I think most of us will be around 33, but some areas to the north of Joplin could be at or just below freezing while still warm aloft. That means between 3 and 6 a.m., moisture coming in will start as rain for many of you, but for some, I would not be surprised if we had a little bit of freezing rain trying to mix in before we're all back above freezing after the morning drive. If we saw anything from this accumulate, maybe a glaze to 1/10 of an inch at worst. In general, though, we're looking okay for the rest of Tuesday afternoon. A break around lunchtime before some more showers try to get going around, let's say, late afternoon. As far as temperatures go, 33 in the morning, 45 by noon. We'll go 51 for afternoon highs in Joplin. But again, that's just the first part of the storm system working in. So after we deal with the rain and possible freezing rain chances for some Tuesday morning, quiet during the afternoon, then we'll see more rain chances pick up Tuesday evening, going into Wednesday morning. Then as temperatures rapidly drop behind the cold front working through, we can see a little bit of accumulating snow try to mix in. First impressions of this, though, if any snow tries to accumulate Wednesday afternoon and evening, maybe half an inch to an inch, not looking like a big deal. But for the most part, this first wave will be mainly in the form of rain. And we could see maybe 1 to 2 inches head our way before we get a little bit of a break. And then the system comes back New Year's Eve during the afternoon and evening as a mix of rain and freezing rain. Then rain, sleet, and snow to wrap things up on New Year's Day. But 51, at least we hit that number for Tuesday and Wednesday early, and 36 New Year's Eve, 41 New Year's Day. Then we're going to be looking a lot better once we head into next week, Chris.
A very unpleasant forecast until next week.
Yeah, this is a doozy of a storm system, but we'll keep a close eye on it.
All right, Nick, thank you so much. Well, coming up, I'll look back at the year in scandals. So just how has this year been? I was talking with Ian about it. Ian, how has this year been? Bad. He says bad. That seems to be the trend. The coronavirus pandemic and the 2020 election dominated headlines this year, but there were still plenty of celebrity scandals to go around. Fox's Ainsley Earhart looks back at some of the most scandalous headlines of 2020.
There certainly wasn't a shortage of scandalous headlines to go around this year. From royal drama to Tiger King, we take a look back at the year in scandals. Mexit was the royal news that sent shockwaves around the world. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex announcing their plans to step back from their royal duties in January. The couple and their son Archie eventually making the move across the pond, settling in the Duchess's home state of California. Prince Andrew also stepping out of the spotlight due to his admitted friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. The prince saying allegations of inappropriate relations with minors are not true. The Department of Justice, though, saying that they would like to speak with the prince as part of their Epstein investigation. Longtime talk show host and comedian Ellen DeGeneres is known for promoting kindness, but several employees on her show say their workplace is anything but kind. The show opening an investigation into allegations of intimidation, racial insensitivity, and sexual misconduct. 2020 dealing a major blow to actor Johnny Depp's career after a British court ruled against the actor in his explosive libel lawsuit. A judge finding claims published in The Sun of Depp's abusive behavior towards his ex, Amber Heard, were substantially true. Judgment day for disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein sentenced to 23 years behind bars, found guilty of criminal sexual assault. and rape in the third degree. Full House actress Lori Loughlin making a trip to the big house this year. Loughlin and her husband beginning their sentences in California for their roles in the college admission scandal. President West, rapper Kanye West, briefly throwing his hat in the race for president after a shocking campaign event in South Carolina that covered topics ranging from his relationship with Kim Kardashian to criticism of Harriet Tubman. Kanye eventually dropped out of the race, though his name did appear on some states' ballots across our country.
Feel his arms around me.
Glee star Lea Michele apologizing over the summer after some of her co-stars came forward alleging abusive behavior by the star, saying she was extremely difficult to work with on set. And late-night talk show host Jimmy Fallon issuing his own apology after a Saturday Night Live sketch resurfaced after 2 decades, showing Fallon in blackface portraying comedian Chris Rock. Fallon saying he made a terrible decision.
You're gonna have to kill me to shut me up.
Netflix Tiger King seemed to have viewers in a claw-like grip this year. The docuseries following the heated rivalry between animal keeper Joe Exotic and animal rights activist Carol Baskin. The show covering everything from Joe Exotic's murder-for-hire plot against Baskin to rumors that Baskin fed her missing husband to her tigers.
What does one have to do to get some kindness in this family?
And more royal drama, this time surrounding Netflix hit show The Crown. While the show has garnered plenty of acclaim for its portrayal of the reign of Queen Elizabeth, some in the British government have called for Netflix to add a warning for viewers that the show is primarily a work of fiction. In the world of sports, the MLB continuing to deal with the fallout from the 2017 sign-stealing controversy. The Boston Red Sox parting ways with the manager, Alex Cora, in January. Cora accused of planning and executing a scheme when he was a coach for the Houston Astros and Boston Red Sox, where he would use technology to decode signals used by opposing teams and then relay that information to players to give them an advantage. The discovery of a noose in the garage of NASCAR's only black driver, Bubba Wallace, stunned drivers and fans over the summer. But after their investigation, the FBI determined that Wallace was not the target of a hate crime. And there were plenty of political faux pas to go around this year. Both California Governor Gavin Newsom and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi caught violating COVID-19 restrictions. Newsom seen dining out with a large group of people with no social distancing enforced, while the speaker was seen inside a San Francisco salon without wearing a face mask. No doubt there'll be plenty of more scandalous headlines to come in 2021, and we will be there to cover it all for you. In New York, Ainsley Earhart, Fox News.
What a wild ride 2020 has been. It's been absolutely wild, to say the least. Ian, again, agrees with this, don't you? Bad. He's still going with bad, and bad is certainly what it's been. Well, still ahead on your news at 9.
2 big votes in the House Monday. One aims to boost stimulus checks, and the other could lead to an override of a presidential veto. I'm Mike Emanuel in Washington with details coming up.
The House is in session today to vote on increasing COVID relief payments and overriding President Trump's veto of the defense bill. Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel has the story from Washington.
The government will soon start sending long-awaited stimulus checks to millions of Americans. The question is, how much will it be, $600 or $2,000? On Monday, the House teed up a vote to take it to $2,000.
The American people are struggling. We hear from them every single day, and they need this additional relief now.
Earlier this month, Congress passed a $900 billion package that called for $600 checks to go to most Americans. House Democrats were never wild about that $600 figure, and neither was President Trump.
None of us totally like the bill. It's the nature of legislating. You're not going to end up with anything perfect. But we passed it because this was the agreed upon number. It's what the president negotiated.
The president signed the package into law Sunday night, but immediately called for $2,000 checks, putting Republicans in a jam as he sided with Democrats.
Every Senate Democrat is for it. But unfortunately, we don't have the Republicans on board.
There's another big vote that looms tonight, and $740 billion in military funding hangs in the balance. President Trump vetoed the funding bill last week, citing a provision aimed at removing Confederate names from military bases, and said the bill should remove immunity for big tech companies on national security grounds. The House will try to override that veto, but it will take a 2/3 vote plus another in the Senate. The military funding bill originally passed with veto-proof majorities, and it would be the first ever override of President Trump. But some Republicans have said they may back the president on this one. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Well, still to come, how a Denver bar owner is fighting to keep his business afloat during the pandemic. A Denver bar owner desperate to keep his bar afloat amid a desolate business climate is tapping into a local thirst for the unique and rare, hoping to outlast the coronavirus pandemic a day at a time. Fox's Ashley Michaels has the story.
It is really unbelievably quiet. When you are walking outside, when you're walking down the street, you don't pass very many people.
And that pandemic void is spilling over into places that should be packed.
The Falling Rock Tap House has been here since June of 1997.
He's now just hoping to keep it that way.
It's really tough to watch a quarter century of your life slowly get kind of flushed down the drain.
He started this tap house with his brothers to cater to craft beer lovers.
Fortunately, we're allowed to sell beer to go.
Unfortunately, it hasn't been a huge hit, but they have a secret menu that just may be.
We have just probably a couple thousand bottles of beer that are vintage.
Very rare, highly sought after stuff.
This stuff here, they stopped making this in 2008.
All of it's now for sale.
Some of these beers are probably some of the last beers of their kind.
Imperial stouts, barley wines, and big sours.
They age really beautifully.
Bottles you can't find anywhere else.
This is probably one of the last beer cellars in the United States of its size, and I don't think we'll ever replace it.
He says selling off the prized collection is, of course, bittersweet.
It's not doing me as much good as this place being open.
So far, though, it's paying off.
What we've sold so far will, give us at least 6 more weeks of life, and if we can sell the whole collection off, that'll probably give us closer to 4 or 5 months where we can hopefully survive through this thing.
And that hope, he says, is better than his hops.
And that was Fox's Ashley Michaels reporting from Denver. Some notable beers in the collection come from breweries from England and Belgium, too. And brewmasters visit the tap house every year during Denver's Great American Beer Festival. Well, that's our time for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next news time is in just a few minutes at 10 on KOAM. And again at 7 a.m. right here on Fox 14. We'll see you then.